Hello, welcome to Down the Track on MView TV. My name is Bruce Mott and I'm the host of the show. Tonight we've got an exciting guest. As most of you would have heard by now, there's an exciting new drag racing series starting up in 2022, the Australian Top Fuel Championship. We wanted to get someone on the show straight away that can tell us more about this championship, what it means for the racer, what it means for the fans, and what it means for drag racing going forward. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest, Andy Lopez. Andy Lopez.
G'day, Bruce.
Welcome to Down the Track. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Very good, very good. Exciting times for you, no doubt, with the announcement of this series. So, you need to tell us all about it. It's a new series that's just been announced, Australian Top Fuel Championship. It's going to run across 6 different tracks, 6 meetings, guaranteed 6 cars. The calendar was just released. So tell us, and there's been some great feedback about it. So first of all, what was your thoughts on the feedback that you've received so far about this new series?
Well, I look at it in 2 parts. Like when we first announced that Top Fuel were going to run this championship series, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. We were really, really pleased about how excited people were and looking forward to something a bit new, I guess, and we talked a bit about the formats and so forth of the types of events that we'd be racing. So that feedback was great. Then the next part of that was actually sort of bringing the calendar out and bringing that out to life. And again, the feedback has been really, really strong. Like I think people are excited to see a championships rounds going to Victoria and WA again, and there's still the grand final to be announced and that kind of thing. So generally speaking, we were really pleased with how people have responded.
So it is a new exciting series. We promised that it's going to be something totally different to what's happened before. So tell us, what can fans and racers expect? How's a typical event going to pan out, and what's going to be different to events in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. Looks so there's basically we're going to run 2 types of events as we go through our series. There's I think 3 events in our calendar where we're partnering with existing events and trackers as promoters. So obviously at Calder, at Sydney Dragway in May is I think that's the Nitro Champs. We've got Western Nationals in March and then the Australian Nationals in February. So the first event of the series in January in Sydney Dragway is a Top Fuel promoted event, as is round 4, and round 6 will be, as I said, it's still a bit of a secret. So when we promote our own events, look, people know us from the Summer Nats and those other kind of sort of multi-layered automotive festivals, and we want to bring a bit of that kind of spirit and vibe. So when we do our events, they will be a festival. It's if you think of drag racing as like test match cricket, well, we're the Big Bash. That's the way we see it. And we're going to be unashamedly there to create a new sense of fun and so forth. Racing will always be the hero of the event, but we're all about loud music, fireworks, great food, live music as well, other kind of activations if the venue and the facilities can hold it, whether it be burnouts, drifting, a really great pit experience, more fan engagement, use of big screens and so forth in a more fun and meaningful way. Traders and exhibitors, really to round out an experience that will make the hardcore fans really happy and give them something new and deliver the racing they want, but also for the people that we want to attract to the sport, that there's a bit more of that carnival. And a couple of my mates in drag racing always sort of, I think they say it kindly, talk about the circus that we bring when we come to events. So that's really it. So we really want to make sure that we satisfy the hardcore racing fans. We also want to put on a show and an experience that their friends, their partners, their kids, and everything else will be excited about and keep them coming back.
So unashamedly trying to get new fans to the track as well.
Yeah, totally, and that's really important. Like all sports need new people to grow and that kind of thing. You cannot leave the hardcore people, the one who've underpinned the sport for years, behind. But our belief is, as long as we continue to deliver good racing and a really well presented competition that has meaning, the rest, all the circus and carnival around the edges are there for the event tourists, and everyone will be happy.
And what about the ones that can't get to the track because you might be racing in New South Wales and there's in another state? Is there TV and online coverage planned as well?
Yeah, we're putting a strategy around that at the moment. To be honest, our real first focus was to get the series announced, the calendar done. We're now working through those sort of other issues. We really want people at the tracks to start with, and whether that's our own event or whether they're supporting another, like as we're doing at Calder and at Sydney and at Motorplex. First priority has got to get people coming back to the tracks and that sort of stuff, and then we'll get a sense of how we can broadcast, whether it be through, we're hoping actually to have a free-to-air component as well, but through social and other things.
Okay, I mentioned at the start that there's been a lot of great positive feedback. There's also been some not so positive feedback. There's questions about whether racing at Queensland, there's questions about is Heathcote and Calder Park, is it up to spec for Top Fuel? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I'll break it. I'll deal with each of those in their bits. So looking the questions around Willowbank. So where we are at the moment is we've announced a 6-race series that takes us through to the middle of next year. So without being disingenuous, we're going to continue to work to try and get more drag racing at more venues around Australia. It does mean that sometimes the track will miss out, and we would hope to be racing at Willowbank sometime in 2022. It may not be part of that series. It's not about abandoning a track, but there is a limited number of events that these guys can race at as well. Victoria and Perth were really important to get on the schedule. So we were really more looking about how can we grow and that sort of thing. And if we can race at Willowbank in 2022, we can get a way to do that, then we will be. It's not about abandoning Queensland fans by any stretch of the imagination. Hopefully next year, if people want to see Top Fuel and it's not racing at a track near them, they'll be able to get there and travel. What I will say about Willowbank is that they have a sensational series of events happening in 2022 through 400 Thunder and Winter Nationals already. So for fans of Willowbank, I would be obviously, and I would expect nothing less, that they'll vote with their feet, get down to the track and support 400 Thunder and support Winter Nationals and all the other awesome events that the guys run there. Now, I was going to say the next bit you asked me, I nearly forgot the bit about the tracks being up to spec. So we've obviously been doing a fair bit of work with the tracks before we did those announcements, and that involved both with sanctioning body and also with the teams themselves. So in terms of concerns about the tracks being up to spec, both of those tracks have made commitments to not just us, but also to their sanctioning body or the insurers, that the tracks will be ready to host Top Fuel, and we take them at their word. So look, in that sense, and we'll work really closely with them. So I don't mean to sound flippant, but the only people's opinions who matter about whether those tracks are up to spec are the sanctioning body who insures the event and the guys who strap themselves into a car and run down the track at 500 kilometres an hour. So everyone else's opinions, whilst it's a good bit of drama to talk about, we're working closely with the tracks and they'll be safe, or frankly, we won't run.
Sure. You mentioned sanctioning bodies. Obviously, this series is going to go across both sanctioning bodies. IHRA Australia and ANDRA, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. You've also mentioned 400 Thunder. You're still wanting to promote them. I've noticed in your press releases that you're all about promoting drag racing. Obviously, you've got this Top Fuel Championship, but it sounds like it's very much we're all promoting drag racing across the board. Want 400 Thunder to remain successful. Want IHRA Australia to be successful and ANDRA to be successful.
Look, the biggest challenge that faces drag racing is coming out of COVID and rebuilding the sport. Like, we've been able to race and Winter Nationals was fantastic this year, but nevertheless, we still have this sort of massive challenge, particularly in the southern states, in Sydney and Victoria, like those tracks have, I mean, Heathcote's obviously been in a rebuild, but Calder and Sydney have been really suffering. Winter, Queensland's been up and down and that sort of stuff. What's required is basically get events back going, racing, and what we're about is we want to deliver a fantastic championship for Top Fuel and the festival and the events around that. We're about promoting drag racing, so we've sort of said to ourselves from a marketing and social point of view, if there's good drag racing on in Australia, we'll be promoting it, and that relates to, as we said, 400 Thunder, the ANDRA Drag Racing Championship. There's a whole pile of other events that are going to be happening, fingers crossed, in 2022. And we'll be like, it's all of our duties in drag racing to get out and support each other. The tracks have done it tough. So and as it comes to sanctioning bodies and that kind of thing, again, I don't mean this to be flippant because I know there is great drama in drag racing around sanctioning. So the thing for us, I'm an event promoter, and this is how I look at the sanctioning bodies as the insurance company that has a rule book that gives us guidelines as to how to operate an event to accredit the wonderful officials that work for those sanctioning bodies, and to make sure that we race safely and that everyone from the competitors, the officials and the spectators have a fantastic but safe experience. That's what sanctioning is for. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really need to, we'll race under the sanctioning that's at the track and that kind of stuff, and that's where it begins and ends for us.
So Andy, how did this series come about and how did you get involved?
Well, it came about, I've been working with a gentleman called Nathan Prendergast for a long time through the Summernats. He's a fantastic television director, works with supercars and is like Australia's leading motorsport TV producer. There were some discussions with the Top Fuel teams before I got involved about wanting to run their own series, and Nathan was part of those discussions, and he came to me and said, you should come and meet the teams, like, what you guys do at Summernats and your other motorsport events and also our other sporting events. It's like we've done a lot of work with National Rugby League, football, Big Bash, etc. He said it could be a really good thing to combine that with what Top Fuel is about and so forth. So it was a driver-driven movement and that sort of thing. They wanted to do something different, and they spoke with Nathan, found their way to us, and then it's funny, we've worked as a real collective, ourselves and the teams, to come up with what the calendar is and how we want to do things, and because those guys really, and they just went and having a really good time going really fast these tracks.
Just lost you a little bit at the end, but that's all good. And so you got involved through Nathan, basically. Did you have?
Yes.
Were you following the sport and had an interest in the sport prior to that?
Yeah, yes and no. Like we've had drag racing in some shapes or forms as parts of our events for at the Red Setouts for the last couple of years. I've been to the Winter Nationals a couple of times. I've been to other events at Sydney Drag, but much like when I get involved in Summernats, it's all kind of new, it's very new to me and that sort of thing. The drag racing stuff. What our guys are really good at is presenting sport in a dramatic and exciting way. Look, Top Fuel and drag racing in general is dramatic and exciting. It's not that it doesn't need it, but in terms of that, what we want to do with the events is to create a bit more of that spectacle and particularly around the Top Fuel stuff, is that when those machines rumble out to race, like we want to put a bit bit of palaver around it, you know, a bit more noise. We don't like, you know, any passes, so you may as well be luxuriate in the moment and make the most of it.
So you've announced it's going to be 6 rounds, I said, across 6 locations, and a guaranteed of 6 cars. So can you tell us who are the drivers that are guaranteed to race and who may also be involved in the series?
Yeah, well, I can tell you in terms of it's the 4 teams. We've got the Rapasadas, the Lamatinas, the Reeds, and also Premier Racing. The guys are putting together their driving teams at the moment in terms of who's going to be racing. The Lamatinas are looking at running 2 cars at a number of events, and also obviously with Premier Racing, I think are working closely with Rochelle Splatt as well to come to a couple of events. The rest of the stuff will keep in the bag for some later announcements as well. But it's been good. There's been a couple of people who've come out of the woodwork who are sort of piquing their interest about running Top Fuel. And one of the things that we also talk about, this is just the first of many series. We take a long-term view. We're building something. It doesn't have to be, it's not going to be where we want it to be in year one. It's going to be in a great place, but we're planning for growth.
Well, that was my next question, is what's the commitment from the drivers and the teams for this series? Is it just 2022 or is it beyond that?
Oh, look, I think it's for 2022 and beyond. In terms of, it's a hard thing to talk about commitment in this sort of stuff, like in that, these guys, everyone knows how expensive Top Fuel is to run. It's a, it is a big and expensive sport to be in. So the guys are committed to make 2022 really successful. And really, it's up to us as promoters to make sure if we're delivering on what they want to get out of it, which is to race their cars in front of more people at more tracks and have a really great experience. If that's what they're getting out of it, the guys will continue. They do the sport for love. There's no money in it for them or anything really. This is a passion, and they love the competition. In the end, it's what they race for, is to beat the guy in the lane next to them and go faster. Like that's why they do it. And it's funny. Like when I first met them and I really got my understanding, I said, my question with drag racing is, why do you do it? Like what do you get out of this? Like I could, in the sense of knowing what their investment and all this thing was, and what comes so clearly through is just their absolute love and passion for what they do. I can't imagine what it's like to sit in a car and go nearly 500 kilometers an hour or whatever it is. I have no, I heard my first Top Fueler. I think I was like in the pits out at Sydney Dragway, and I nearly pooped myself when one did a startup and I didn't know it was happening. So the idea, like, these guys are insane as far as I'm concerned, but they love it, and they're really, it's a long-winded answer, but they are committed as long as they're getting what they want to get out of the sport, which is fantastic racing experience and bringing pleasure to fans watching them, and that the racing is good and competitive.
And of course, there's going to be more to the show than just Top Fuel. There needs to be support brackets. I saw in the press release you're sort of reaching out to see who might be interested in supporting the show. So what's the situation around that? Is there some support brackets locked in, or what's your...
We're in progress with that at the moment. So we really made a deliberate thing. We didn't want to talk to any other brackets before we announced our calendar. It was sort of, it's always good just to keep those sort of, because it's hard to talk to a bracket and say, hey, come and race with us, when we can't say where they're going to do it and what our plans were. So we just wanted to get that calendar out there, and it would be really cool to, we want to run a really tight, a tight competition schedule and that sort of thing. So less is more on some occasions, and sometimes more is more. So we're just going to start. We've had people reaching out to us, and I'm not going to say who they are as yet, but we've had people reaching out, and again, we want to deliver the same experience we're doing for the Top Fuel cars. If they're coming to our event, they're going to have a really good time, be well treated, have good competitive racing. One of the things that we're really, really big on is running to time and running to schedule, and that's another thing that with the Top Fuel stuff is that if we say we race at 1, 3, and 5 for argument's sake, then that's when we race. or as close to it. We're not about big blowouts, and we don't want to can't over schedule these events because we want to make sure that we can deliver them, because you don't want people missing out on a big attraction because we've run so late into the evening that mum and dad have got to take the kids home and they miss seeing the cars that they want to see. So we're pretty tight on that sort of style of competition.
And by the sounds of it, a tight turnaround time between rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what we're working to a 2-hour turnaround now, I think previously it was around 2.5. I asked the guys, I said, well, why not 90 minutes? And they're like, yeah, you really don't know anything about drag racing, mate. I said, that's a fair point. So but the 2-hour turnaround is part of the drama, right? So, and that's one of the things that's going to be in terms of how we cover the show, both for the fans live, and if we do broadcast, we'll also be including this as well. It's about getting action in the pits because it's carnage in there. It's pretty busy. And it's really exciting, that turnaround time, seeing guys, what they're doing. At least, and this is it, I look at it from my point of view, who doesn't know much about drag racing and that kind of stuff. So I go in the pits and watch and go, that's pretty cool, right? And so I put myself in that event tourist sort of market. If people go, they like to see that stuff because, like, man, engines are getting, like, these massive engines are getting stripped and rebuilt, and there's all this thing, and are they going to get back out in 2 hours and race again? So I think it's a good layer to add into the competition, that little bit of pressure, a little bit of duress.
And pit action is part of the show. As you said, the crowd loves to see it. Hopefully we might see the blip come back in one day.
What's the blip?
The blip. So the blip is when they're warming up the car and they just blip the throttle, and usually frighten shit out of the spectators. Everyone loves it, but it's disappeared out of the sport for a variety of reasons.
That's what happened to me when I was talking about, I think it was Darren Morgan did a blip and I nearly blipped my pants. So that was, that's cool. This sort of stuff is great. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened in the sports that have happened in sports that have, for whatever reasons, have gone out of them. And they're things that, maybe it's time to bring that stuff back.
Wow, great to see that come back. So what's on offer for the championship winning team? We know in Andrea there's the gold Christmas tree, in 400 Thunder there's another gold Christmas tree. What's the championship team going to win?
Well, the drivers have told me that what they want to win is a big bloody trophy. So that's the design brief that's gone out for the championship trophy, to be a big bloody trophy, because so they don't race for the prize money and all that sort of thing. It's all about the winning. So there will be a suitably enormous and probably fairly gaudy looking trophy on offer. But what it's about, they're racing for the championship. To be honest, they're racing to be that guy or that girl who is the fastest across the most races and wins. That's why they race.
Sure. All right, I got one more question for you, and then we're going to throw it over to a couple of questions from Facebook. So describe for me in 3 words the Australian Top Field Championship.
Bloody awesome racing.
Bloody awesome racing.
I really should have put more prep into that. I forgot about that question.
That's okay. Look, let's have a look, see if there's any questions coming on the fave. Well, here's one. I'm going to put this up because this person agrees with me. You need more throttle wax. The blip, throttle wax, definitely. People like that.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
What do we got here? These are the new series existing. What's this comment? 3 of the 6 events in the new series are existing events. Is it very likely you can already race there?
Exactly. So that's that's what we're saying. So the 3 ones that are existing is the Australian Nationals at Calder, then you've got Western Nationals at Motorplex, and then you've got Nitro Champs at Sydney. So those 3 events they're traditional events on those tracks calendars. So look out for them. So that's 3 at least that people can already put their hand up to, and they know what they are and they can race.
Got a question here about Nitro Funny Cars. Will Nitro Funny Cars be part of the series?
Oh, wouldn't it be amazing if they were? So look, I know that's a bit of a loaded question. So it would be amazing. I just it'd blow people's minds. That would be that would just be an amazing outcome. It is not planned to be at this stage part of the series, but that wouldn't be from lack of desire.
Sure. It sounds like to me the series is all about, as you mentioned before, growth. So what we may see in round 1 could be a little bit different than what we see in round 6 as you go throughout the series, and certainly as we go to 2023 and beyond. So we're going to wrap it up there. Oh, go on, you had a comment there, Andy?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, look, that's exactly right. And I do, as I say, I want people to sort of feel, hopefully people feel comfortable. This is the first announcement of many. So we were already starting to plan season 2 and that kind of thing. And it would be happy to say up front now, we would hope to have more rounds in season 2 of the championship. So, we've got a championship that's up and running now, six events. We've got a bit more time to plan season 2, and which we're already doing. So I do want to, if I can say, like, in terms of for any punter who loves drag racing, just keep your eye on your local track, find out what they're doing. And the best way you can make a difference to drag racing, whoever it is, 400 Thunder, Andrew Drag Racing Championship, Sportsman, whatever it is, the difference you can make is rock up to the track and buy a ticket. And buy a ticket every time they race, no matter who it is, because the tracks need support. Willowbank, Sydney, Motorplex, Calder, wherever it is, Springmount, all around the place, they need support because they've done it tough for 18 months. And that is the biggest issue and the biggest opportunity for drag racing is for fans to get out there, buy a ticket, buy a pie, buy a T-shirt, support drag racing.
Well said, very well said. Look, thanks Andy for being on the show. It's been a great insight to what we can look forward to in 2022. I know there's many, many excited fans out there and racers. I can only see the series starting off well and then going from strength to strength. So brilliant stuff. We look forward to seeing it all unfold. Thanks for being on the show.
Great. See you, Sydney.
Andy Lopez there. Look, we've got some great racing to look forward to in 2022 by the sounds of it. So as Andy said, support all drag racing. It's not just a Top Fuel Championship. It's everything else that's going on. The best way to support drag racing is to get down the track, as Andy said, buy the pie, all that sort of stuff. It all helps the track. It all helps drag racing as a whole. So please support drag racing. Coming up over the next few weeks, we're going to have Phil Lamartina, Phil Reed, Peter Zibris, and more. So looking forward to speaking to them about the series and looking forward to getting back out of lockdown and going to see some drag racing. Thanks for joining the show. Thanks for your live comments. Keep them coming on our shows because we will put them up and we'll get all our guests to answer as many questions they possibly can. Thanks for joining. Look forward to seeing you soon.